Keeping the environment in mind as we garden is of increasing importance. Today we visit an exceptional example of a green garden and learn from the pros how to be successful doing it. You won't want to miss it, so join us as we garden smart from Florida.
From live animal traps to electronic and organic repellents, Have a Heart has been providing homes and businesses with critter control solutions since 1940. Have a Heart, caring control for pets and wildlife. Have a Heart is proud to support public television and GardenSMART.
I should be arrested for crimes against potted plant kind. My house is where plants came to die.
Miracle Grow potting mix is designed to help grow big, beautiful plants. Everyone grows with Miracle Grow.
Hey there, little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good.
Susan Noyes is the founder and publisher of Make It Great Media, as well as the owner of this beautiful beachfront residence. Susan, thank you so much for letting us in your home.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
This is outstanding. What can you tell me about the place?
Here, let me show you. Our home was originally built by Louisa and Frank Crowninshield. Louisa DuPont Crowninshield grew up in Winterthur and was the first member of the DuPont family to come to Boca Grande and make this their home.
I'm assuming there are any DuPonts that still live here, and this is your home now. What brought you to this place?
It came to our family in about the 60s, and my mother-in-law unfortunately died about 9 years ago, and my husband and I took it over and then decided it needed to be renovated.
You've made a lot of changes, I understand.
We certainly have, but we honored what was historically great about the house and then renovated to the highest green standards around that.
So one thing that we've heard in the community is that this was built as a very environmentally friendly and a greenhouse, if you will.
The most sustainable, correct for it in terms of water use and using native plants, landscaping possible.
Okay, let's talk about the gardening component of it. I love talking about plants, it's what we do. How do you build a green landscape? And as you were looking at constructing a green landscape, I'm sure there were plants that were in place and you're having to look at modifying that, and did you work with a landscape contractor?
Good questions all around. We started with one landscape contractor who had a lot of experience on this island and kept pushing him to use native plants and plants that were not water hogs, and he just couldn't get it. So after 9 months, we found Craig Larson, and we're so delighted to work with him because he really understood what Mother Nature wanted to work with and how to make it lovely and at every level.
There is an art and a science in designing a landscape that is environmentally friendly, and a lot of it comes down to a really in-depth understanding of the plants, because the whole point is putting the right plant in the right place and going with plants that are well acclimated to the environment and the landscape.
And that's a trick when you're next to salt water too.
It's a very, very challenging environment. I guess the most important question for you is, do you like it?
I love it. We all do. And my favorite anecdote was having our next door neighbor call last fall when she had returned after being away for the season and saying, My yard looks awful, and yours looks so lush and green. What's the secret?
That is a ringing endorsement indeed.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We're here today with Randy Porter, who is a building contractor who works specifically on the design, construction, and renovation of homes in the historic district in Boca Grande, Florida. Randy, thank you so much for being with us.
No, you're welcome.
Randy, tell me how you got involved in building homes.
My father-in-law was a general contractor in Florida. I went to work for him at an early age, and I got involved with the carpentry aspects and building homes and building buildings. And you know, I really liked the day-to-day aspect of seeing the fruits of your labor as a project came together.
Absolutely. Today you have your own firm, and how would you say your firm is different from many of the other building contractors in the area?
Well, you know, we're always looking for that edge in building, technology, products, that sort of thing, and we could see that the green aspect was going to be a big part of that whole process.
The property that we're touring today is a great example of that kind of work with green design, environmentally friendly design. It's got your fingerprints all over it. What was your approach to building this place?
Well, a lot of it was, you know, using materials that are green rated in all aspects, you know, including the landscaping.
So what are some of the biggest advantages to building green, and what does that look like? What kind of items are you incorporating?
Well, you know, one of the largest things was the solar. We have solar electric, we have solar pool heating. You know, all the windows have special solar treatment, that type of thing. We recycled a lot of the building materials on site. A lot of the structural beams in the house were reused, repurposed as, you know, architectural and trim elements in the house. A lot of the trees and landscaping were saved and used in the final design of the building.
I would think that water is a pretty significant issue here on the island.
It absolutely is. Our water comes to us from an RO plant off the island. You know, we're a barrier island, so it's very costly to make that water and pump it to the island. The property has existing cisterns that were refurbished, and we collect all the rainwater, and that's used to water the plants. You know, that's a big issue when designing landscaping on the island. We have a lot of salt here. We need drought tolerant products, so that comes into play as far as, you know, water conservation.
Absolutely. Well, Randy, we're going to dive into the garden. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks, Eric.
Craig Larson is a horticulturalist and a landscape contractor who over the years has developed a specialization in xeriscaping and environmentally conscious landscapes. Craig, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Eric.
Craig, what initially sparked your interest in plants?
A hobby. I was going to school to become a microbiologist and didn't want to work at a beer factory. So I pretty much developed an interest in the plants based upon my hobby.
So you got a horticulture degree?
I have a degree in horticulture from the University of Florida.
And how did you end up in the field of xeriscaping or environmentally conscious landscape design?
It was something that developed pretty much out of a demand from certain clients. The fact that conservation of water, sound horticultural practices obviously were to the benefit of the environment and to the benefit of the plant material, made things lower in maintenance.
Not only do you have quite a bit of experience in that field, but you've won some awards as well.
We have won some awards, a national award, basically based upon some beach landscaping that we've done out here on Boca Grande, and several state trade awards, okay, for other work that we've done.
Well, you've got a great example of one of your projects that you're going to show us today. Let's get started. Craig, it looks like parts of this landscape are quite well established. When did you get involved?
The construction ended on the house back in 2009, the renovation construction. And we were called in to basically take a look at an existing plan and see what we could do to modify it to better capture the owner's desire for a lower maintenance, lower water consumption, no pesticides, little to none fertilizer, this kind of thing. And so that's how we became involved.
How extensive was the project? This looks like a fairly large site.
It was quite extensive. The entire process, including some of the hardscape aspects that we were involved in, lasted about 6 months.
Wow.
So,
Now, did this involve mostly the removal of items they didn't want, or was it more just adding to the existing?
on the plan that they had, there was plant material that didn't fit the bill. Okay, as far as the low maintenance, low water needs, this kind of thing. There was even some issues with what Department of Environmental Protection would accept this close to the water. So we came in and we modified the plant palette. And pretty much from there, the substitutions we made is what you see.
Well, it looks like everything has grown in really, really well. So we're looking at maybe 2 years in now.
Well, since '09, actually late '09, and so we're looking at 4 years, and things have done well. We've done our very, very best to, follow the philosophy that the owner established with us. Have never used any fertilizer on this property. Water consumption is as low as we can keep it. Choice of plant materials, native and non-native, are all drought tolerant. When we do have a pest issue, we use things that, for example, are extracts of carnations, chrysanthemums, and things like this that is a biological control. Some repellents involved and things like this. So, but you can look around and you can see that it looks pretty darn good.
It definitely does. As we work our way through this property, I'd like to start by talking about what was here initially, or I guess the bones or the skeleton of this site. What kinds of plants were the more established ones that you were able to keep?
By the time we were involved, the original courtyard was gone. They had already started to work on the construction of the pool. But I had been on the property before. There was nothing as far as a significant attempt at organized landscaping. It was a little of this, a little of that. What we were able to reuse were some things like the larger traveler's palms. There's a Phoenix reclinata up against the house, which are bigger pieces and we could reuse. But for the most part, what this property was, as you can see, the native canopy, some older coconuts, cabbage trees, the gumbo limbo, and the sea grape. And pretty much it's created an environment that dictated on which direction we had to go.
Sure, and with the natives that you found here, they were, of course, very well suited for the site. And
absolutely.
They played into what you were trying to design.
It played in, and it also told us what to reuse, even though those existing natives, the ones that were here, may have been part of the lot clearing for the renovation of the house. It showed us really which direction, like I said, that we needed to go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, that's an important thing when we're looking at a site, is to look at what's already doing well there. It can be very instructive
Correct.
as to what naturally wants to grow.
Correct.
One of the most important components of a great landscape plan is figuring out which plants belong in which place. And then, there's the, as we've talked about before, there's the art and science of making that selection. And with a green landscape, I would imagine that would be even that much more important, because you're limiting your plant palette in many different ways. What were the specific criteria that you were looking for as you were putting together the plant list for this plan?
Well, we have a client that is here different times of the year. We want to try and maximize color during those times of the year. We want to maximize the effect that textures and colors have working together. But the biggest thing is we got to make sure that we group things together that require, similar amounts of water. Not necessarily using more natives and more natives and more natives, but integrating the natives with material that might be a little more common. You check your exposure from the sun, you check your exposure from the wind. Knowledge tells you what is going to work, what's not going to work, what's going to be like chasing your tail. And from there, we made the selections based upon pretty much the environment and knowing when the client was going to be here.
And you talked about earlier, they wanted plants that did not require a significant amount of water. You do have some irrigation on the site, right?
Everything is irrigated, but it's irrigated with a drip irrigation system, utilizing the cisterns as a water source when that water is available. That has been subsidized by some irrigation wells that are here to be used if needed. But the biggest thing is controlling the amount, the frequency, and that kind of thing. The biggest thing is there's no potable water being used. Creating potable water takes a lot of energy.
Of course.
So it goes as far back as far as the footprint, all the way to the production end of it.
One thing I think that's really impressive about this design is that with many green landscapes, they look more like what we might just see in nature. They have kind of a wild component about them. But this is a very beautifully designed, a very well organized, and it's a gorgeous landscape. So you've accomplished the environmental concerns, but also it aesthetically is a very beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, when most people think, okay, well, you got to use all natives. Well, that can be boring, okay? You can integrate non-natives with natives as long as you pay attention, again, to their watering requirement and things like that. And you integrate the two and you get interest. You get texture variation, you get color variation, and again, it's something that has worked well here.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk plants. Craig, what are some of the selections that you went with in this design that have worked particularly well for you?
Out here in the courtyard area, we've been able to utilize things that are a little bit more, we'll call them tropical. We've got the variegated arboricola, good coloration as far as the leaf, flowering as far as the bougainvillea. Things like wild coffee are out here, nice shiny leaf, kind of a waffly wrinkle to it. Ixoras, gives you a nice pink blossom. And some of the native material, green and silver buttonwood. We've also got cycads. We've been able to utilize flowering lantana, which is a native. So again, it's playing the game of mixing tropicals with natives to create, a good variation, good interest to the eye. But again, understanding that the plants will tolerate lower watering values.
Absolutely. Well, the courtyard definitely has a very lush tropical feel, and there's an awful lot of blooming plants, and I'm sure that gives you interest through different seasons of the year. I see Indian hawthorn that's in flower right now, and then some really sensible ground covers like the Asiatic jasmine. There's also what appears to be variegated flax, which is a really nice long linear foliage with gold and small purple flowers. So there's a tremendous variety inside of this design as well.
There is, and again, a lot of it just isn't leaf color or anything else. It's textures, like you pointed out with the flax lily and things like that. So we've tried to mix things up because, again, it creates the visual interest by mixing the textures, the colors, and trying to create an image that, again, makes you want to look at it.
Absolutely. This part of the property is very different from the more cloistered, protected courtyard that we were just in, as it backs right up to the very, very edge of the water. We're probably only 30 feet from these beautiful breakers. What kind of environmental challenges did that pose?
Well, it's a complete 180 from the other side of the house. The wind, the salt, the exposure dries things out much more than on the other side. And therefore the plant palette becomes very restrictive. We've got to use the material that is native to a frontline dune situation. At times when we get really rough surf, the seawall acts as a backsplash, the water comes up, the wind blows it almost up to the house. So as a result, these plants have got to be able to deal with that kind of sol exposure. Well, what we've got is we've got a helianthus, which is a sunflower. It's known as dune sunflower. It grows in the first line dune situations. The taller grasses are your sea oats. Gives us the larger panicle during the fall. We've got carissa, natal plum, nice dark shiny leaf, white flower, and an edible red fruit.
I notice you also have a turf situation, which I know can be a challenge in really saline environments.
Well, it is, and again, the owner had no desire on trying to make this the country club look back here. So we chose a pasture grass that comes in with its certain variety of, weeds, as we'll call them. But again, it covers the grass, stabilizes the ground, and again, it is what it is. Green is green, as they say.
Well, it's a very different look from the courtyard, but
Yes.
also it's a very nice natural feel going up to the edge of the water.
It is, and it's, the back of the house here it's a first line dune situation. So to try and do things with plant material that's not native to that environment is a waste of time.
Absolutely. A good maintenance program is a very important part of keeping any landscape looking beautiful. And I would imagine for a green landscape, it's going to look a little bit different than a conventional landscape, right?
Well, because in a green landscape, you're concentrating on lower volume as far as irrigation. Things are staying drier. That reduces a lot of your maintenance effort. The integrated pest management programs, as far as understanding how the environment influences your issues with pests. Part of that integrated pest management is controlling moisture levels. The biggest thing that we have here, if anything, is occasionally on the citrus trees we have a scale issue, sometimes a whitefly issue, but mostly a scale. And there are products on the market that can be utilized. Organic products, dormant oil sprays, things like this that really do work well as long as you follow the program.
All right, even horticultural soaps, some of those things, a couple tablespoons of ivory soap in a gallon.
True.
And sprayed out on a plant does an amazing job on things such as aphids and some of those piercing, sucking insects.
It does, but again, the trick to that is repetitive use.
Right.
Because it really doesn't have any repellent action. It's got no real poison to it. It acts as a suffocant, kills the insect basically by suffocating it.
What is your approach to weed control, Craig?
Proper mulching. Most of it is hand weeding. We've tried salt water. Kind of works, kind of doesn't. Depends on the kind of weed. But again, most of it is purely the fact that we're maintaining a good, proper mulching to where we don't have a real weed infestation. You'll notice as you look around, plants do cover the exposed areas. So there's not really the ability of weed seeds to become vibrant and viable and compete with the plants.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And typically it only takes one good solid mulch application per year. Maybe in some areas it may take more than one.
Very true, and like I said, it's you can look around and you can see, we've got a good mulch volume on the ground, again using, the leaf litter, shredded organic mulch that comes from compost places. And again, it's very, very beneficial, not only just for the weed control, but also it recycles the nitrogen back into the soil.
Well, Craig, those are some great tips, and I think those are applicable to any type of gardening or any style of gardening, whether it's a green garden or a conventional garden, just using best practices and looking at things like mulch and compost as opposed to, say having to use herbicides or a lot of fertilizer. I think that's a great take-home message for our viewers.
It's worked here.
That's great. Well, it's a beautiful garden. Craig, I can't tell you how much we've enjoyed touring this place, and I'm really, really impressed with the work you've done here. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you guys came by. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been good talking to you.
Thank you, Craig.
Right, Eric.
Take care.
Thanks.
Another show, another amazing garden. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we've enjoyed producing it. If you watch the show, you know we travel the country visiting beautiful gardens. Well, We have a surprise in store for several in the audience. To learn more about the surprise, visit our website at GardenSMART.com.
From live animal traps to electronic and organic repellents, Have a Heart has been providing homes and businesses with critter control solutions since 1940. Have a Heart, caring control for pets and wildlife. Have a Heart is proud to support public television and GardenSMART.
I should be arrested for crimes against potted plant kind. My house is where plants came to die.
Miracle Grow potting mix is designed to help grow big, beautiful plants. Everyone grows with Miracle Grow.
Hey there, little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good.
Today we visit an estate where the homeowner has incorporated eco-friendly design into their home and their garden. And we also discuss ways that we can incorporate best practices into the way that we garden every day. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great gardening tips and ideas as we garden smart.